Hello and welcome to Mana Biscuit, episode number 11, your weekly geek culture podcast. I am RJ Velasky. With me, as always, are my co-hosts, Jacob Gamble, TJ Rathburn. How you doing, guys? Ready to get into it?
Doing well.
Already.
So, Jacob, last week, you were playing Hearthstone right up until the end there. So, I don't know. You look like you might be ready for the show this week, though. So
I am ready for the show.
All right. What you looking at, man?
Where? Wow. I was going through the Raid Bosses top 10.
Okay. Well,
and reminiscing about some of the past fights that I've had the opportunity to be in, and some of these I've never even heard of. So
right. Well, yeah. We'll get into that list at the end of the show. That's one of the things we're going to talk about a lot. But yeah, it pulls from MMO history, and it will give me a chance to talk about EverQuest. So you guys are in trouble. Now, you also this week you messaged me. You said you picked up a Wii U.
yes, I did, and the thing is outstanding. And I don't know why this thing has such a bad rap. I really don't. It honestly, I understand that the only real difference between is the screen thing. But as I'm playing golf and I have to set down the little control pad with the screen and hit the ball from there, it was actually a really cool concept. They've played it out pretty well. All in all, I am very much impressed with it.
Well, that's good that you enjoy. I think the reason it got a bad rap, though, is because Nintendo saturated the market for the Wii U with the Wii, and that particular market isn't really ready to spend another $300 to $400 every few years, especially when they probably haven't played their Wii in a while.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, but it's good that you like it, though. I mean, there are a couple of games on there that I'd like to play. Bayonetta 2 comes to mind.
Yes, I actually played the demo for that, and It is outstanding. It is fast-paced, a lot of action, and
Bayonetta was one of my favorite games on the last generation. So it chafed me a little bit when it was Wii U exclusive, but if patterns hold, I'll probably end up with a Wii U someday. So
it actually has the first one as well. If you buy the
right, yes,
it comes with Bayonetta and Bayonetta 2.
Right, so
as a package deal.
So, all right. Well, so you got a Wii U. TJ, what you been up to this week?
Nothing. I've been stymied at all points trying to do nerdery. Like, particular comic book issue came out this week that I attempted to get my hands on and was sold out, and things like that. And I've just been out of luck when it comes to.
Everybody has those weeks. There's always next week. And next week will be pretty fun for us, I think.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, we're going to get together and do some tabletop, which will be on the channel, so little teaser for you there. But I had a chance to do a couple of things this week that were a lot of fun. I got a chance to join up with some folks over on Roll20 and Twitch. They're a group called Two's Company Gaming. Two's Company Gaming is the name of their little group, but they have this group of people who do D&D 5th edition one-shots in a custom setting, and they brought on artists to create artwork, and they've developed a story for this entire world, and they live stream their sessions every weekend on Twitch, and I got a chance to be part of one. It was a lot of fun, and they'll be doing it again in the weeks to come, so hopefully I can join them up for that. I'm going to put a plug for them in the show notes if you want to check out their stuff. It's pretty cool. You can check them out on Twitch TV/DMs for GPs, and that's also their Twitter handle at GMs for GPs, not DMs, GMs for GPs. But and that was more or less the highlight in terms of geek culture stuff that I did this week. But they're looking forward to next week and getting ready for the trip, going to a Star Trek convention. But before that, I'll be getting over to Battle Creek with Jay and TJ. We're going to do some tabletop gaming live-ish. We'll record it and put it up. That's live as far as I'm concerned. All right, so But
The
we do
special
have
2-part episode with the cliffhanger in the middle.
Yeah, we'll figure that out. We got to.
I'm making promises that we cannot cash.
Not possible.
It's just gonna stop, and then you'll wait.
We're gonna go on location. We're gonna be in Hawaii. Like, there's gonna be CGI dinosaurs.
Nice.
It's gonna be brilliant. Oh, speaking of CGI dinosaurs, which is the best segue I have ever done in my life. This wasn't on our show notes, but there was a short film. It's only about a half an hour long, called Kung Fury, that got kickstarted and was released this week.
Yes.
And it is the most brilliant thing I have ever seen in my entire life, and I thoroughly suggest that you go and watch it right now. I mean, not you, the viewer, who is watching me right now. You continue to watch me right now, because I'm way better. But then after you're done watching us, go and watch that.
That's right. Yes, we'll put the link in the show notes for you just to make it easy. But before you click that link, make sure you subscribe and thumbs up. Otherwise, it won't work.
Right.
Right.
We'll disable that link, and then we will find where you live.
Alrighty. So, for the week's news, there's a few things we want to talk about before we get into those raid bosses we were mentioning earlier. Now, D&D, well, more specifically, Wizards of the Coast, made an announcement this week about their cross-platform story expansion for Forgotten Realms. Drizzt Duorden, that's how I say it. Other people, that's. I don't know. Let's do around the board. Jacob, how do you say it?
Drizzt.
Drizzt. Okay. And yeah. TJ, how do you say it?
Drizzt Duorden.
Drizzt. So we have Drizzt, Drizzt, and Drizzt. I think those are all fine. Well, Drizzt sounds a little.
Yeah,
like
man,
a little dribbly. I don't know.
It's been a long time since I've even had.
I mean, there is an apostrophe in there. It's like isn't, only with double Z's instead. It makes sense.
But I pronounce the double Z's as in pizza. So.
Oh, pizza.
Drizzt.
Pizza.
Yep. So, yeah, I don't know. Anyway. Everybody's favorite drow.
Except for R.A. Salvatore's.
Well, right. And I mean, you know, I think you could probably see that coming. I mean, the guy has been doing it for like 30 years now.
And he's killed the dude off like 6 times. And they keep going, no, you got to bring him back. We need to sell those books. And he's like, guys, let me write about anything else, please.
Well,
we need more Dark Elves. Drow for life.
They brought out the Jaraxel, which they was, again, a drow who was running with Entreri for a minute. I don't remember the name of the trilogy off the top of my head, but it was actually not bad, and was a nice departure from Drizzt and Caitlin and all the rest of them. So, and still took place. I mean, Drizzt had faced Entreri before, and that was what the. Wow, wow.
Well, there's a lot. I mean, you know, for somebody that wants to get into the story of Drizzt now, they have a lot of reading to do.
Oh yeah.
I go down to my local Barnes and Noble a lot to pick up coffee and wander around the section, and it's just, I mean, physically wider than I can show on camera right now. Just the Drizzt books. So there's a lot there, and it also. Explains what TJ was talking about earlier with Salvatore, or Salvatore, explains an interview I saw with him once where he says he's always being asked about writing, and he said the only reason you should be a writer is if you feel it's something you have to do because it's a terrible thing otherwise. But so he's been being written for that for quite some time, I think. But it's not ending anytime soon. Forgotten Realms with 5th edition has. I follow Chris Perkins on Twitter. People are always asking him, what the official setting for 5th edition is, and he's like, they're all official settings, but it's pretty much Forgotten Realms. And so. They're pushing cross-platform now. They have their Neverwinter MMO. They have board games set in the Forgotten Realms universe. that tie in with the story. Of course, there's the books. They also have
Sword Coast.
Yeah, Heroes of the Sword Coast, I think it's called.
I think it is. Yeah.
The new 4-player co-op with a DM type structure game that looks pretty cool, and all of this stuff is pulling from the Forgotten Realms story, and so they're kind of centralizing it. Oh yeah, and they also have this like tabletop RPG, and they're putting so they have new modules and adventure modules coming out for that as well. But I don't know, every time Drizzt comes up, I mean, there's a lot of things to talk about with Drizzt.
It's Sword Coast Legends.
Sword Coast Legends, thank you. Yes, that being the 4-player co-op video game for PC. But every time Drizzt comes up, it reminds me of Drows, specifically Forgotten Realm Drows.
Yeah.
And I just absolutely can't stand the fact that there is a race that's supposed to be inherently evil. It's something that Tolkien did with his orcs and uruks, and it just seems to have lingered on throughout fantasy, but it's just, I find it pretty problematic, to be honest with you, to approach a race as inherently evil. That being said, there's a lot of fun stories in the Forgotten Realms settings. My favorite D&D PC games of all time, purists might argue with me that the gold box games were better, but for me, it's all about the BioWare Baldur's Gate and Icewind Dale and series. Planescape, arguably a better story, not in Forgotten Realms, but still.
Well, I mean, there's so many different campaign settings that are good. I recently read an AMA with the guy who wrote the Eberron setting, and he also railed against the races being particularly evil, with the exception of like demons and devils and like angels and like celestial beings. Because then evil and good is part of the fabric of what they are. But for a regular sentient race, it makes zero sense that they can't choose a moral code.
Yeah, and I mean, the thing with the celestial beings and the planar beings is they aren't really like sentient creatures as we would identify with them. They're more just manifestations of the concepts for their planes. So that makes a lot more sense. Yeah, absolutely. And Jacob is enthralled by this D&D discussion.
I am so gone on tabletop. It's been so long since I've played a D&D game that as I'm listening, I'm kind of reminiscing, and at the same time going, man, it's just been forever. We moved on to White Wolf and never really looked back. We being as a general whole.
I moved that way for a long time, and now I've moved kind of back towards D&D, although I do have a particular thing about White Wolf, and also about one of our other later topics.
Go ahead.
Which being Kickstarter.
Like okay, yeah.
Because White Wolf sold all of their properties off to Onyx Path Publishing and decided to do Kickstarters for like their major properties. And most of them have worked out very well, except for the only one that I actually backed, which was Exalted 3rd Edition.
Aww.
Which the 3rd edition book, the Kickstarter ended in 5 days. It will be a year ago, and I still have not received this book.
Oh man,
it's terrible.
So it was funded, but you still haven't gotten. Oh wow.
It was like way overfunded. They asked for like $150,000 and got like $800,000. For the big premium prestige format book, which is what they've done for all of their Kickstarters. It's like, we're going to write the book regardless. You can get the normal book, but if you want to help us make a really nice version, you get one for your donation.
Okay.
So I dropped $110 on a nice leather-bound, like lovely, beautiful piece of promo artwork that I never actually received. I get every couple of weeks. I get a notification saying, "Hey, we're almost done." But like every day, it's like every day I go and I check my mailbox and it's not there, and I'm like, "Sweet, it's gonna be so great when I never received it."
Yeah. Wow. So it's leather bound. Are they like slaughtering the cows and tanning the leather?
Yeah, they had to tan it themselves.
What were you asking,
bound
Jay?
in human skin.
Ugh.
paid for it.
What were you asking, Jay?
I thought that we once upon a time were at yeah, okay, that leads into our topic. I thought that was last week's topic.
No,
But
no. Yeah, I brought it up initially last week, giving you time to prepare and think
yeah,
about
that's
it.
right.
But all right. Well, yeah. So that was a big announcement in terms of where the story's going for D&D and the cross media properties this week, and
It looks cool. By the way.
It does look cool.
Like
It does look cool.
Underdark and demons from the abyss, crazy, and hand puppets.
I'm looking forward to looking. The Sword Coast Champions has been on my radar for a long time. I can't wait for that to come out. But Neverwinter, I just no. It's mostly just because it's an MMO, and that's not the kind of game I really want to spend a lot of time on anymore. But the actual modules for that little tabletop game that they have, where you sit around with character sheets and roll dice,
and some dice and stuff.
I'm looking forward to seeing what they come out with for that. But speaking of other things potentially maybe to look forward to, probably not. I'm just going to say probably not. I don't want to be one of those little clickbaity headlines. No, there's probably nothing to this, but we're going to talk about it anyway. And that is Unsilent Hills. Unsilencedhills.weebly.com. It got a lot of attention because it was tweeted by Norman Reedus, and I think it at least shows that he's as miffed about the loss of the project as any of the fans, which
that's
probably why people like Norman Reedus so much. But so it's a chance for it basically gives you the only actual not physical, but the only actual tangible contribution that I saw on this site when I was checking it out was a list of memes expressing your frustration with Konami that you could
I did see that. That was
you
great.
could copy and paste at your leisure. So Konami's kind of, there was another story I saw Kickback where Konami kind of backtracked a little bit. They're like, oh no, we're not abandoning consoles, we're just focusing on mobile. So yeah, I don't know. You see, I saw the tweet from Norman Reedus there, and I thought, oh, maybe they're actually going to do it. Then I looked at what it actually was, and I'm like, no, there's still no chance of Silent Hills. And Konami is, they're going to make those little I'm blanking.
Premium.
No, the
slot machines.
Slot machines. Oh
yeah.
My goodness! Wow. Yeah, I don't know why I would blank on something like that. Yeah, slot machines where you play Contra to win an extra bonus or something. So, all right, Konami, you suck. Let's.
That's about it. Too.
Yeah. Okay, so there's another segment I wanted to try out this week. I gave you guys a little bit of a heads up.
Oh goodness! I don't even know how this is going to go over.
All right, so. We are going to call this segment Google Translate Theater. There is a story in geek culture this week that originally had an article or a source from an article from a foreign country. I'm going to take that article, put it through Google Translate, read that off, and we'll see if TJ and Jacob can put their heads together and figure out what the story was. So this one was sourced from Japan. All right.
Wait, what a surprise. Yeah.
And here we go. The deep layers of the large brawl Nintendo, Dina partnership Mario Dive, Vegas or revival of one hand, Nintendo conclusion Dina and parentheses Dina, a capital tie-up, I to enter the smartphone parentheses smartphone game, brand which is represented by Mario is dive into the large brawl market Nintendo has been repellent. Iwata and Moriyasu, the bonds that secret of both companies top boosted the decision. Minami-ku, Kyoto, Kamitoba, Nintendo headquarters nearby. Development building of chalk, which was completed last June, is towering. Here is year March. Satoshi President Iwata, its presence. OS is Android.
Well, this is easy enough. I mean, we reported on this weeks ago. Ultimately, Nintendo entering the mobile market.
No, Ooh, close.
No!
I want to see the actual text of this.
I do not.
Can you post that in the note? Can you post that in the show notes?
Yes. Well, the text, the link of this, yes, the link to this, I'll pop it into the show notes, so it should show up for you here. But yes, the key hints. Let's see.
Something about diving. A brawl came up multiple times. It sounds like the only Nintendo brawl thing I can think of is Super Smash Bros.
Right. So that's a bit of a red herring. Let's see. Market Nintendo. OS is Android.
Yeah.
Development building of chalk.
Is it like
that would crack me up right off the rip? I'm like, chalk?
Well, it sounds like a Paper Mario style thing, only with chalk. Or like the Kirby's Epic Yarn. Like
okay, I'll give you a hint because you're still. It has to do with their next system.
Oh, that's right. I just read this today. I just read this yesterday. Nintendo is going to have an Android version, pardon me. The next Nintendo console will have an Android iOS.
Android operating system.
Yeah.
You are correct, except it is still a rumor. It is a rumor. This is the Japanese news outlet Nikkei. So I think that's how it would be said. Nikkei, and they are reporting a rumor that that Nintendo will be using Android as the operating system in their next console.
That seems weird.
It does, doesn't it?
That doesn't seem like it's something that would happen.
It doesn't, but
until you look at what they like the Ouya, for example, was dirt cheap and capable of doing so much more
Nintendo
than was ever given.
Nintendo has never. I don't know the nitty gritty of it and what they subcontracted for their development, but I don't think that they've ever outright licensed an operating system for one of their consoles. So and Android being open source, it avoids licensing there, but it's still going to have to be adapted. It'll be highly adapted, I think, with a Nintendo overlay, that locks it down, similar to the way you have Samsung and Amazon that adapt Android OS to their devices specifically. So, but again, it's still just a rumor. The thing about it, this particular rumor, though, is that it's reported by the Japanese newspaper Nikkei. It starts with an N, and they have reported rumors in the past about Nintendo that Nintendo has outright denied, but later turned out to be true. So, we'll see. I thought it was kind of interesting, and it gave me an excuse to read something from Google Translate, which is always fun. So. We'll see how that goes. But let's go ahead and dive into what we've hinted at a little bit here with Kickstarter. There was an article I read this week on Polygon, written by someone who had experience. Katie Sharanis has experience with an indie development that was being backed on Kickstarter, and she brought up something that I think is an interesting point about Kickstarter and the way it's being used now. So what she focused on mainly was that you have on Kickstarter, for gaming in particular, large development companies coming onto Kickstarter, putting up their game, and using it as a measure of gauging interest to attract larger investors to fulfill the actual budget. The flip side of that, though, is that it creates this perception of the community that these big, massive games can be done for, say, $500,000, when really that's maybe 1% of the total budget for the game. So when an actual indie developer comes on and asks for a few $100,000 to make their small little indie game, they're like, well, what are you doing? What are you doing with all that money? So I think it's interesting because it shows a way that a drawback of Kickstarter that I hadn't considered before.
One of the things about this that's really strange to me is I remember reading years ago, right at the beginning of the Kickstarter sort of thing, that was distinctly against the rules of Kickstarter. Like that they would not allow that sort of thing.
Well, Yeah, I mean that I'm not sure as far as that goes. I'm not familiar with the ins and outs of Kickstarter and
Now,
their policies, not having run one. But if that's the case, then it's pretty obvious that it's a rule that's not really heavily enforced.
right. Well, there was a bit of a brouhaha a little while ago about some of the changing rules that Kickstarter, because originally Kickstarter was really conscientious about that sort of thing, where they wanted it to be specifically a crowdsourcing platform and not a shortcut for established people to get things done without having to invest their own money. And then they started to shift away from that in the last couple of years, and there was a little bit of like controversy about it. But I wouldn't have thought that they would have shifted that far.
Yeah, well, and it seems really weird. And Jacob, we've been dominating it so far, but I know you have a lot to say. You've never been a huge fan of Kickstarter to begin with.
I've never been a huge fan of Kickstarter to begin with. I think that it's a lot to do with too much money, and this is a great example of it. However, I will that I do think that there's something to be said for the I do think that there's something to be said for the measuring stick portion of this. The people coming in and seeing how their games are going to fare. It doesn't seem like it. I think that Kickstarter is the wrong venue for this, but I think that they've got the right idea. I mean, ultimately, we've had the reason that or probably not Daredevil, but Deadbolt came to be was because of the quote unquote leaked tester footage, and thus it's now a phenomenon that we're looking forward to. I think that testing the waters is not necessarily a bad thing. However, Kickstart is not the place for it,
Right.
for exactly the reason that TJ just got done saying.
Yeah.
This is not supposed to be for anything that's established. This is supposed to be for the little guy that goes, "Hey, I've got this great idea," and we go, "Yeah, that is a great idea. I need one of those. Let's make this happen."
Absolutely.
And that was supposed to be the goal for it. And ultimately, Kickstarter has gone away from it. There's still, Indiegogo, for example, and
GoFundMe,
Yeah.
and
yeah,
any number of other
GoFundMe and a couple
sites.
of other
Mhm.
little ones that don't quite have the recognition that Kickstarter has. That they
The only
continue to do
reason
this.
the only reason any of those other sites are actually like keeping running is because of the fact that you actually get paid regardless of whether you raise your entire goal. And there are some people that are actually like latching onto that, and that's why those little sites like GoFundMe are actually, alive.
Sure. Yeah, I think there's definitely that aspect to it. There's also some fairly larger, not like pure indie, but people like my wife really follows Supernatural, and a couple of actors from Supernatural are doing their own little independent movie, which happens to be identical in more
Go
or
to
less.
Con Man.
Yeah, Kings of Con, and they put up their Indiegogo campaign the day that I'm blanking on the name.
Alan Tudyk.
Alan Tudyk and the captain Nathan Fillion. Yes,
Nathan
thank you.
Fillion.
Yes, they put up the exact same principle at like the exact same time. These two relatively minor actors, although Tudyk and Fillion are much bigger than these guys.
Yeah.
But on the scale,
Well, I
of
don't know.
minor
Supernatural
actors,
has some
well,
harsh fandom.
the main characters of Supernatural are big time. These guys are like minor characters. So, but the main characters are probably bigger or as big as Fillion and Tudyk, but these guys aren't main characters. But they had
Not
the
quite,
same idea.
close.
They had the same idea. I mean, it's probably not that surprising that they had the same idea. They both do a lot of the same thing, go around to conventions. Not because they're getting paid a crap load of money to, but because they're getting paid money that they need to go to these conventions. So, So anyway, that's to say, I saw they use Indiegogo probably for the same reason, but they also have a rabid fan base that probably would have funded them on Kickstarter anyway. So there might be something else to it there. Who knows? Yeah. So, but specifically, what we were talking about here is the idea that Kickstarter in this way seems to be being co-opted by bigger companies. So maybe that is a reason that Indiegogo and GoFundMe will see some of the business that Kickstarter hasn't.
Yeah, but if there ends up being like a grassroots movement where it's like, oh, we're going to abandon Kickstarter because they're not being ethical with the way that they're handling it and the way that they're dealing with big companies, then we're just going to see the big companies jump over there next.
Yeah,
sure.
Like you can't stem that tide.
No, you can't stem the tide, but you can do what you can to stay ahead of it.
Yeah, but I mean, unless you want to have somebody making a new version of this site like every week, it's not going to happen. And
well, maybe. Yeah.
And half the reason why, I mean, it's crowdsourcing. You have to have a crowd. There have to be enough people aware of this site in order to get your name out there and for your product that you want to have made. And so you can't really have that big of a pool of different competing websites.
No.
You just end up splitting that vote.
Well,
so there's like 8 guys on each site with $12 a piece.
But to be fair, you're probably not going to get far even on Kickstarter if you don't hire an actual campaign manager if you have any kind of serious funding goals, because that's become a spin-off business all to its own on promoting Kickstarters, getting media coverage for Kickstarters, driving traffic to, and so yeah, that same thing could be done just as easily, because most Kickstarter traffic isn't just people think, I wonder what's on Kickstarter today. It's people getting driven to the site by media and tastemakers that they follow on social media. And once that traffic's driven, the destination isn't a huge deal. If you're getting properly promoted and directing potential investors. But anyway, we talked about Kickstarter before. This was something about it that I hadn't really thought of, so I thought it'd be interesting to talk about here. But I think I've said about all I have to say on the subject. I don't know about you guys, if there's anything else you want to dive in. Yeah.
Straight on that.
All right. So let's get into the real meat of what Jacob's been wanting to talk about for over a week now. We didn't fit it in last week's show, but IGN.com released a list of the 10 greatest MMO raid bosses of all time. So let's go down the list. All right. I don't think these are numbered. They don't appear to be numbered.
No particular order.
But from top to bottom, first boss, Ragnaros the Fire Lord. Everybody's fought Rag.
Yeah.
He's Ragnaros.
This is right.
Yep.
I didn't fight him in Firelands.
Well, you said you haven't played in like 4 years. I guess that would put you back.
It was right. It was right at the tail end of when I was like, no, I'm done.
Yeah. Yeah. He was a fun encounter in Firelands, especially
giant meatballs.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, rolling across and
sounds delicious.
And the heroic phase where he'd pop up and run around.
And he had legs.
Yes. But there was just like so much going on in that fight. It was a lot of fun. It was, and then you went from that to Dragon Soul, which was awful. Yeah, there was not a good fight. There weren't really any good fights in Dragon Soul. Next guy, this guy on Rift. I played Rift. I got the max level. I never did any raiding per se, but apparently
Same here.
This guy Volan made the list. Let's see. Every time I think of Rift's Volan's fight from the Storm Legion expansion. Oh, that's the other thing. I never played with any expansions, so he wasn't even there then. You can't help but think it looks like the Fellowship of the Ring is brawling one of the Jaegers from Pacific Rim. Yeah, if you look at the picture on the article, which of course will be in the show notes, he definitely looks kind of like a Jaeger. He's got these big, massive, like, steam stacks on his back, and he's sort of like this anthropomorphized robot giant with, looks like mandibles of some sort. I don't know. He's a guy.
Because everything cool has mandibles, bro.
It's true. It's true. But Tharlok doesn't. He's in Lord of the Rings Online. He's looks like a big.
Balrog.
Balrog, yeah. Oh, I
A
was gonna say
non-flaming Balrog.
non-flaming.
No, he's a
Balrog.
Balrog. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I was gonna say Baylor Demon, but I still have D&D on the but I guess they're kind of the same thing as far as fantasy tropes go.
Oh, I wonder where that came from.
Yeah, right. Okay. Yep, he's a Balrog. I never even made it to max level in Lotro, so
Nor did I.
Yeah. Mimiran. He's an
Loved
interesting
this fight.
Yeah.
Loved
He's
this
like
fight.
a steampunk gnome to the core, just like a giant gnome battle tank. He was a lot of fun, and it was a well-designed fight in terms of its phases. And
The thing that I particularly appreciated, although I did not get to fight him at like a current level, I didn't fight him until later in that expansion. I loved how organic it was when they included that hard mode. That there was the button that you can hit and be like, boop,
right,
and then bam, hard mode. As opposed to just clicking in a menu and saying, okay, we're going to do the hard mode. Exactly. There's something you actually had to do.
No, that's a great point, because Ulduar was the first raid instance to have hard modes. And all of the bosses' hard modes were like that. Like, my personal favorite was that giant robot baby that, like, pounded the ground.
Yeah.
And yeah, his hard mode was you had to like DPS down his heart when it dropped, and yeah, that was great. I can understand why, from a design standpoint, they shifted away from that, because that's something that would have to. That's like a whole other phase, basically. That's being, not only are you normally on hard modes only like end cap bosses or main bosses of an instance have an extra phase for their mythic, as it is called now. But having to design each boss to have a particular trigger in that way would probably add a lot to the overall design resources needed. But that doesn't mean it's not a better way to do it. Oh my goodness. Yeah, absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. So next up on the list, though, is Chandra Manaya from Terra Online. I actually played a lot of Terra.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Because I've actually been thinking about getting into this now that I'm not playing WoW.
Terra. Well, Terra is fun to play. It has a brilliant art style. Absolutely love the color schemes and the architecture in that game, in the various cities and the landscapes. The actual leveling up process and gearing up process is, I mean, it is Asian MMO to the core. It is grindy as you know what. So
all get out.
Get out.
Yeah. So, and I mean, the leveling itself doesn't take terribly long from an MMO standpoint. So even that you can pour through, but yeah, getting your gear up and the enchantment system, which is like purely RNG based, and there's so much to get up, invest into getting your gear ready for encounters that I gave up on it after a while. I'm not that hardcore anymore. So Chandra Manaya, though, was the interesting thing about this is she wasn't an actual raid boss. Endgame content in Terra for the longest time, in Chandra Manaya's time, were 5-man instances, but they were really freaking hard. I mean, and it's already a Twitch skill-based game, and yeah, so you add the complexity and the things you have to be aware of in a normal MMO encounter on that. You can get some pretty intense encounters even in a 5-man instance. So, yeah. And of course, there was also the gear requirement, which means you're grinding. Anyway, enough about Terra. Yakmar, Age of Conan. I played Age of Conan for like a week and a half.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody did. That, I think, was the point of Age of Conan.
Yep. I never got into the endgame rating in Star Wars: The Old Republic, but
I never played it. I heard it was lovely, like the quest system for each individual class type was awesome, but never did it.
Yeah, I mean,
I gave away my beta key.
Yeah, it was basically a poor man's Mass Effect as far as leveling up classes go. So it was engaging, but yeah, I never got into the end game of it. So
Yeah, there's speaking of Mass Effect, quick aside, there is there is talk of Mass Effect 4 being announced next week at E3.
Oh yeah, it's gonna
right,
happen.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Mass Effect 4 has already been announced per se, but there's very few details on it. So I would expect to see more on E3. Absolutely, coming out of E3. Absolutely. So yeah. But anyway, moving along the list, my personal favorite from the list.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Kara Firm the Sleeper, and you look at MMOs now, and what Kara Firm was is just not even imaginable. Do you guys have I regaled you with the awesomeness of Kara Firm before?
No, do this. Bring it.
So
I
Kara,
don't got that kind of time.
yeah. So I'll keep it short, and I'll skip the lore. I'll skip.
No,
the
go
lore.
ahead. Actually, I'm more interested in the lore than I am.
No, I'm actually interested in the mechanics. So let's just make this a full 3-hour long episode.
All right, there we go.
All right. So anyway, Kara Firm was a massive dragon that was never intended to be defeated. He was literally, his one mechanic was something called a death touch, which some raid bosses have because EverQuest flipped the finger to gamers. And yeah, but the bosses that use death touch would like use it to the first person that aggroed the boss just to make their lives miserable. Kara Firm would just chain cast it to everything on his aggro list. So if you're on his aggro list, you're insta-gibbed. He was not meant to be defeated. He was only unlocked when 4 placeholder bosses were all killed at the same time. So what happened on servers is, because nothing was instanced, these the top guilds would have agreements about who kills what when, and they would make sure that these 4 placeholders were never all killed at the same time, or else the sleeper would be awoken. Now, when the sleeper was awakened, he not only death touched everything on his aggro list, but he then proceeded around the entire zone in which he existed. Remember, nothing's instanced. And death touched everything in the zone. Then he went to the next zone and death touched everything in that zone until he had death touched everything on the entire continent, and then he despawned.
What?
Yes. This was Kara Firm the Sleeper, and I remember when I was playing way back when in the like 2003, I think it was. 2003. The date's right there on the article. I started getting these messages from some of my friends. They said, Zek, the PvP server was called Rallo Zek. They said, dude, Zek is going to kill the sleeper. I'm like, no way. So I created a little level 1 character on Rallo Zek, ran down to the zone, and there were just so many people in the zone, I couldn't figure out what was going on. I got the story later. Basically, the top guilds on that PvP server called a truce from killing each other and decided to just like meat cannon all of their characters at Kara Firm. And they had clerics standing by to chain resurrect the players as they got death touched. And it took them, does it say how long it took them?
3 hours.
3 hours. But the interesting thing is, when he got down to about 20% health the first time, so SOE, the devs, saw what was going on. They're like, no, Kara Firm can't be defeated. So they despawned him.
Oh, that's got to be some anger.
I would be so
there was
upset.
a lot of anger, so they recanted that. They spawned him up again, and they let him defeat him. So, yeah, that to me, outside of some of the stuff that comes out of EVE Online, that's the best story in MMO history.
Oh man, the EVE Online stuff though.
Yeah, that's why I say other than.
Like I tried to play EVE for like a couple of days and went, no man,
nope.
No, but I love to hear about it.
Exactly.
Like you weave all those spreadsheets into a narrative, and I am there, son.
Yes.
But I am not going to.
Yeah.
I need these and I need this thing. No.
Exactly. That's I think I even said that when it was just Jay and I talked about it on the show before. Yeah. Spreadsheet Online is not for me, but yeah, the stories that come out of EVE Online are just fascinating. But for games I've actually played, this is probably the most interesting story. Pandemonium Warden in Final Fantasy XI, next on the list. another similar story in that he was a really, really long encounter. I never got even close to max level in Final Fantasy 11, but
18
I remember
hours?
hearing about this
Yeah.
encounter. Yep. Yeah, and Final Fantasy 11, similar to EverQuest, similar to a lot of Asian MMOs, it's just very grindy, and it's not World of Warcraft. It's just probably the best way to say it. But then last on the list, good old Yogg Saron. Never actually made it to him. The guild I was raiding with back in Classic WoW was on Twin Emps when Burning Crusade came out. But interesting fight. I'm sorry, that was Katoon. This is Yogg Saron.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Yes, Yogg Saron back in Ulduar, which that's 2 from Ulduar, which
overall it was the best design raid that they ever did.
Yeah, pretty much. I would have a hard time disagreeing with that. Yeah, people really seem to. I think Icecrown Citadel probably would have been a little bit better received if it hadn't lasted so long, but that's the problem Blizzard has always had. But yeah, Yogg Saron, fantastic encounter. Ulduar, still my favorite.
I mean, Ulduar was a straight up go in and get it done. There was no
gating,
no ship battle, no. It was walk in, do the thing, and get out, and that was.
It still had its like kind of gimmicky bosses, like having to be in the vehicles for Flame Leviathan and stuff like that. But it was all well engineered, well put together. The entire experience from start to finish was just as flawless as you could get for a raid. Yeah, Ulduar I think was one of the best design raids that they ever did. It almost makes me wish that it had been an end of expansion raid, because that sort of thing deserved to be a crown jewel as opposed to being the middle thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Well, right, and that was something that actually came up recently in discussion, and I know we talk about Blizzard a lot, but we're talking about Blizzard some more. But there was some discussion that there might only be 2 raid tiers in the current expansion, and a lot of people brought up the point that the second raid tier has been the best. For a long time. So if you look at the second raid tier in second raid tier in Classic, Blackwing Lair, hands down my favorite. Yep. Second raid tier in Burning Crusade was the Black Temple and Tempest Keep, both very good. The second raid tier we just talked about in Wrath of the Lich King. Ulduar second raid tier in Cataclysm was Firelands, best of the two. Second raid tier in Pandaland was the Throne of Thunder, which was also better than any of the other raid tiers. So, yeah, there you go. I haven't been following it too closely, but we're coming up real close to the second raid tier of Warlords. So, we're going to fight Archimon, so that should be cool. Hopefully they do that justice. Well, yeah, but we never really fought Archimon. We fought in the stupid little Caverns of Time thing, which...
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Anyway. So, we've talked about what's on the list. What was not on this list that you think should be there? Anything that stands out?
Love the Lich King encounter. I still think it's I still think as a single one-shot encounter, that was probably one of the best.
Sure.
In and of itself, that was a difficult series of mechanics that required actual coordination. It wasn't go in and it wasn't just straight Zerg it. It was, and even now, now you can Zerg it now, obviously, but towards the end, it still requires some sort of pre-planning if you're going in there. A
lot of bosses have had mechanics that you have to account for, even at max level presently. Even Blackwing Lairs, if you just go in there and try to kill the boss right away, you're just going to die. But they've nerfed some of that because they now encourage people to go back and solo them because of all these pets. But anyway, Yeah, the thing about Lich King to me was that's pretty much the pinnacle of Warcraft's story, in my opinion.
Yeah.
If they had ended it there, I'd been like, okay, we're good. We could take a few years off, maybe have a sequel, but that's good. But no, they had to keep money. So
I really thought that they should have stopped after that, done Warcraft 4, the RTS, and then done World of Warcraft 2.
from a story standpoint, absolutely.
Yeah.
From a print and money standpoint, there's no way that was ever going to happen.
That was never going to happen.
So,
but I mean, and even then, like I appreciate the fact that it's still open ended. I mean, there is still the opportunity for Dragon as the Lich King to call upon us again for
I have a very strong suspicion that it's just going to end up being that. If I had to guess, I'd say we have at least 2 more expansions on WoW. One is going to be the Undersea expansion where we go and fight Ashara finally. It's going to lead into the final expansion where we fight the Burning Legion and Sargeras. And at some point we're going to see Ford Dragon come up as an ally. He's going to bring the Scourge to help us kill the Burning Legion.
Right. Well, yeah, and I mean we're talking about the lore as it exists.
You're just like, yes, that's so cool.
That is yes.
Can you imagine that cinematic where you just come striding out all Lich Kingy but fire instead of ice, and you just like, nope, we're gonna take these guys down. I am tired of this dumb stuff happening. End it all.
From a cinematic, if they mirror the cinematic takes to the Wrathgate.
Yeah.
Oh
yes.
Yeah.
Oh goodness.
Just like watch it open up.
Well, and that was one of the things. Like ultimately, you had followed. You had followed Ford Dragon from the start, man. I mean, he was there when Onyxia was.
I cried when Ford Dragon died the first time.
Oh yeah, it was sad. It was awful. Can you imagine though? Like Khadgar goes to visit Ford Dragon, and be like, "We need your help," and he's like, "Fine." And then they look over the edge, and Khadgar opens a dark portal-esque portal in front of a Wrathgate. It opens up. You see, what's the name of the planet? Argus? That has the Burning Legion on it. You see Argus, and then all of a sudden just Scourge start pouring out of Icecrown and into this portal and out onto the Burning Legion. Like, how awesome would that be?
Yes. All right, Blizzard, hire us.
Yes.
Okay, so now that we've lost all of our viewers. We've lost all of our viewers.
Yes. This is Mana Biscuit, the World of Warcraft podcast.
Yeah.
Look, Mana Biscuit was in World of Warcraft. So
it was.
Yes.
Argent Dawn reward.
Yep. It was the mage food as well for Burning Crusade. Yep. Anyway, it also sounds fun to say. Mana Biscuits. That's why that's the big draw to me. Okay, so I'm thinking. Yeah, I mean, most of my raid experience, like your guys, has been in World of Warcraft, so that's probably where I'm pulling. And yeah, outside of the Lich King encounter, I can't really think of anything else that would really deserve to be on a top 10 cross all. In fact, I would argue that maybe even swap Ragnaros with Lich King. Because Ragnaros, I could go either way with having him be on this list, but Lich King needs to be on.
Yeah, but he's iconic. You know, that's the guy. Like when I started playing World of Warcraft, like you would just hear like little. It was almost like actually being in the world, where you would hear rumors of this horrible thing that someday you might have to fight.
And that was like, oh, we're raiding Molten Core.
Yeah,
MC Raiders.
Now, there were other encounters that I've enjoyed more, but I don't know if they fit the iconic status. Like, especially after reading the blog that the designer did about what it was like to design the Shade of Iran in Karazhan.
Sure, okay.
And it was his first thing that he had ever designed for the game. And, it really made me understand mechanics and how well the mechanics worked and how well they taught you what they were without having to teach you explicitly how you figured it out.
Don't move during Flame Wreath.
Yeah, don't move. and that's the sort of thing that I particularly enjoy, and
Yeah.
especially in this style of game, like learning how the mechanics work and how they teach people and how video games and people interact.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. That that's to me is why the only thing that I enjoy, outside of the fact that I enjoy my raid team, the only thing that I really enjoy about MMOs are raid and counter designs, because they are fantastic examples of game design in action. You have ones that have succeeded and some that have not. But they are all, for better or worse, examples of somebody sitting down and trying to organize the elements that they have in this set of rules that constitute the game and create an interesting experience out of it. I mean, that's like the very fundamental basis of game design, which interests me as well. So I absolutely see that. One thing obviously EverQuest is my first, and always has will always have a special place in my heart. But the interesting thing is, we mentioned this in brief on a previous episode, that Project 1999 is fully official in terms of being recognized by Daybreak Games, who runs EverQuest now, as a sanctioned fan private server. And they just released the Velius expansion on the private server, which is the last expansion that they're ever going to release. But that's the expansion that contained Terraform, so we could actually see like modern day headlines about Terraform.
Let's do this. Let's make characters. Let's do this.
I would, but then we would have no more show. You would have no more D&D game from me. EverQuest requires your full life and nothing else, my friend.
I still remember coming over to your house and you just sitting there in a cave, and I'm like, "What are you doing?"
Waiting for a respawn.
Yep, waiting for a respawn. You've been waiting days for this thing to respawn.
I never got that respawn, by the way. I never got it. Raster of Guck was his name, and it wasn't just a respawn per se. He had a placeholder, and he had like a 5% chance to spawn, and I never got him.
Like I remember that too, like going over to your house for tabletop style gaming.
Yep. And I would just be sitting there while I'm running like Vampire or whatever it was I was running at the time. I'm also sitting there just keeping an eye on the monitor.
Be clearly distracted. You'd sit there and what?
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah.
And then, not that I gotta hold you blameless, because every time I think about running games at your house, I remember the night where I fell asleep in the middle of the game and nobody woke me up until the very end, and then the only thing I remember is all of a sudden I heard the Halo theme, and that woke me up, and I just sat up and somebody put a controller in my hand.
Let's do this.
It is that time.
Yep. All right. Well, as fun as it is to sit around and reminisce, I think
nobody else wants to hear this.
Yep, nobody else wants to hear this.
Sorry, guys. The worst episode ever.
Best episode ever. Every episode is the best episode
That's
ever.
Right.
But I think we've said all we have to say about rating bosses. So, and that's about all we had to say this week in general. So I think we'll go ahead and wrap it up here. Oh, do you have something else?
I do want to point out one thing.
Go ahead.
This is not anything actually like on topic. Just pointing out that I am shooting on location at Jay Gamble's house.
Oh, goodness.
Hi, everybody.
I don't even know if I got you in frame, but...
you got him in frame. All right. Yes, so we didn't have to deal with the internet disconnects this week, so that was good.
Yep,
absolutely.
And for weeks to come. So...
All right. Okay, well, that's it for this week's Mana Biscuit. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the show, please visit us on Facebook.com/Mana Biscuit TV and follow us on Twitter at Mana Biscuit TV. Remember to thumbs up the video, and subscribe on YouTube. And you can follow us for live streams when we get around to them on twitch.tv/Mana Biscuit. Your support really does mean a lot to us. So thank you very much for watching and clicking and all those little buttons that we want you to click. We do appreciate it. So for Jacob Gamble, for TJ Rathburn, I am RJ Volosky, and we will see you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.